We have so many great guests on the show, and I'm really excited about today's guest. Jeffrey Hayzlett is a global business celebrity, a cowboy, a book author, a keynote speaker. He's a Renaissance man. So let's welcome Jeff to the show.
Hey, good to see you, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. And by the way, I want to start it off right. I noticed that you're always wearing a hat in all the interviews. And I just thought, well, I should wear my hat as well.
Oh,
So what I did was I brought my hat, and I want it to be known amongst all the marketers and business people that watch the show that my hat is bigger. So I just want to state that right off the bat, that I've got a much bigger hat than Mr. Ogden does.
South Dakota cowboy, so everything's got to be big. So
Exactly, we're bigger. As you know, the first time I was introduced to my wife, or my wife's great grandmother, she's a small petite thing, and of course my wife was 5'1", about 105 pounds. Grandma Agnes looked up at me, and she looked at Tammy. She looked way up at me. She looked at Tammy and said, "Isn't he bigger than necessary?" So I'm starting right off the bat, bigger than necessary. But they taught me to take my hat off here in South Dakota. I happen to be out in my office in South Dakota today. Just flew in from Los Angeles, so I've been taking off because otherwise I'll blow the hat off with all the stuff that we're going to share on this interview.
absolutely, Jeff. And it's I got to say your bandwidth must be terrific because you're coming in wonderfully well. And the last time we did this, you didn't. So you must have upgraded South Dakota. I don't know what.
The whole state. Yeah, I actually I borrowed some money from Trump. I bought the state, and I've been adding infrastructure changes ever since.
Good. Well, I'm going to start off with the question I ask every guest on the show, and I'm going to ask you. And it's real simple. Who are you, and what do you do?
Well, they term me as a global business celebrity. I've been called a lot of different things. Forbes magazine called me the celebrity CMO. The German bloggers have called me the Chuck Norris of marketing. But really what we do is we work with very high growth businesses at the Hayzlett Group and work with a number of major brands as well as small brands. But all of those are very high growth companies, and that's in essence what we do. I'm also known as a speaker and author. I do a lot of speaking. I've, of course, written 2 best-selling books, The Mirror Test and my newest book, Running the Gauntlet. And so both of those have been runaway bestsellers, and we've been very, very excited. And, I just like to tell people I'm here to help, and that's what we try to do.
I like that, Jeff, and helping is such a great concept. And I got to say, here's the mirror test. So that's your other.
Oh, good. Side by side, right there. Look at that. Side by side, 2 bestsellers right there. Mega hits.
So I'd say go to Amazon and buy these books. They're fun to read. So anyway, but you got an extensive marketing background. You were CMO of Kodak, and you did a lot of stuff. So what do you see as some of and you do a lot of speaking about this, and the world keeps changing, right? And there's new marketing channels and strategies. What do you think are some of the things people are missing today?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people are trying to do right now is get closer to your customers. I was at a sales seminar not too long ago, a sales event or conference, and someone said, well, it's all about relationships. I said, well, when did it stop being about relationships? And especially with the things that we're seeing in social media, what we are seeing is a real resurgence of getting closer to our customers, which we should have been doing all along. And those businesses that have been very close to their customers have done a great job, and you've always seen that exhibited in such companies like Apple and others. Or Nordstrom's, and you know who they are. But what we're seeing is more and more of that. So I'm seeing trends about how we get in front of our customers to know what they're thinking before they know what they're thinking. We're working with a company called Site Marketing, where we see a company that says, in essence, how do they stay 1/2 second or 1 second ahead of their customer, and being able to pull together the information, use all the data that's out there, because being able to access a multitude of data and then be able to make some sense out of it. But, another area is certainly, in terms of the online research that we're seeing. We work with another company called ITEX out of Canada, which is all around mobile marketing and focus groups, and where we used to do that behind a two-way glass mirror about how to put that online, how to put that on a mobile device and be able to get input from your customers as you need it. Now that's real critical. And then let's talk more mobile side. You know, we work with companies like Verizon and others, but in particular Verizon, how to take and utilize the analytics that you get from all that, you know, and have a mobile strategy. For a lot of marketers, their mobile strategy is, I have an iPhone app. Well, you need a lot more from that. And so you really need to be starting to think about when your CEO or the rest of the executive team turns to you and says, what's our mobile strategy, that you have one in place? Because that mobile device and, you know, that you have, that phone is the most personal device that we have today as individuals, as consumers of information, in utilizing that tool. I mean, we know where our phone is more than we know where our children are. That's how critical the phone is becoming a part of our lives. So those are some things, you know, there are many others that I see, but those are, you know, the three things that I'm seeing is, how do we get closer to our customers and access the data and build that community so that you're closer to that customer, anticipate what their needs are to be in front of them, how to be able to get more in-depth information from our customers, you know, where they're at today, which is online and mobile and via video. And then the third area in terms of being able to have a strategy in place to take advantage of all that information.
I think that's some great advice, and I especially appreciate your comment about the personal relationship we have with our mobile devices. I told Christina C.K. Curley that my iPhone is a female. Why? Because it's the last thing I see at night and the first thing I see in the morning. It's definitely female.
I got to tell you, TMI, baby, TMI. Too much information right there. I got to imagine, if you get up when you get up in the morning, I think your phone turns its lenses off. I'm just going to point that out.
But I'll also give one other quote, which I thought was very interesting. Years ago, a top executive at GE talked to Jack Welch and said, you know, what do you recommend that I do first? And he said, go talk to customers. They never lie to you.
Yeah, always. Well, some customers will lie to you. I mean, let's be straight. You know, I'll be able to tell you more about what I mean by that later. But there are some customers that will lie to you. The key is to listen quickly and to get the information and be able to see it in action. And when you see things in action and see how customers interact with you in real life, then that's really truly what you can get it and use it and then act on that information. Always go to the customer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, there's a lot of discussions about the differences between B2C marketing and B2B. What do you see as the main differences?
Oh, one's with businesses and one's with consumers. But aside from that, I mean, there are some differences in the way in which you reach out to that, but the methods are pretty much the same. The scale is different in terms of how you would utilize it and the way in which you'd utilize it. But I mean, the same inherent issues that you have in terms of the disciplines that you have around branding or product marketing or product positioning and messaging. And then, you know, all of the tools, the tactics, you just do them a little bit differently in the way in which you deploy them, but it's pretty much the same. I've had a bold saying for many, many years, a box of soap, a cure for disease, or a political candidate. There's not much difference in the marketing, it's just in the packaging. So the way in which we would go to market is different, but the tools are really the same. The disciplines are the same. I've done both B2C marketing at a major, you know, brand, a worldwide iconic brand, and I've also been hopefully one of the best B2B marketers. I tend to like B2B marketing better because you can have more control on it, in my opinion. You can see more immediate results from it, in my opinion, and you can try lots of different things. And to me, it's more about the relationship than it is about the media. And so, or the mediums. And so I typically like to do more B2B. In fact, that's most of what we specialize in.
Sounds good. An earlier guest said it's all P2P, right? It's person to person, which you know,
it really is, Jeff. I mean, and so it's always about people. I mean, that's the most important thing. And I don't know who wrote that book, Everything We Learned by Kindergarten, or we learned in kindergarten, but there's a lot of truth to that.
I don't remember it. Now, one of the things you talk about in both your books is your personal conditions, or your personal, your personal conditions of satisfaction. What do you mean by that? What are your personal conditions of satisfaction?
Well, yeah, both personal, and then I talk about mutual conditions of satisfaction. I do actually talk about both of those. In fact, yesterday we had I flew in on a red eye from LA where I'd been filming a television show the whole day before, and as I got in the morning, the first thing I did was meet with the new team members, and we had about 6 or 7 of those together, and I hadn't had a chance to meet some of them. And so, but we spent a time working on mutual conditions of satisfaction, or talking about what we call promises, and how we have a customer and a performer in everything that we do. It has an action cycle, and in the middle of that action cycle sets the promise. But on the personal side, what is it and why is it you're doing what you're doing? I think it's very important for you to be very clear about the things that drive you in your business, or drive you in your profession, or the things that you want to do in life. And so for me, it's around a couple of different things. I want to build, personal wealth, so I have wealth for me and my family. I want to have fun at everything I do, and I want to grow professionally. So if I'm engaging in something that doesn't meet those ends for me, or doesn't fit that filter, then why would I want to do those things? And that's the reason why I've gotten out of other positions, because they just didn't find them as fulfilling as before, or they weren't fun. But to me, I have to have all those things. For those are my own personal conditions of satisfaction. So my question to those that are watching today are, what are yours? What are the things that you use to define what you're going to do and how you're going to build your life, or build your profession, or build your relationships? And if it doesn't meet those personal conditions of satisfaction, then why are you doing it? And I actually have built it, I think in my first book, The Mirror Test, I said, why are you in this game? And in the game of marketing, or the game of life, or the game of being married, or whatever it might be, you can apply these things in that manner and be able to say, these are the reasons I do it. And they meet my personal condition of satisfaction, so that when it's over, I can say, yeah, I'm satisfied. I want to do that. And then I can take that into the business side, and actually be able to show people how to do this, on the business side as well.
Very good, Jeff. Some good stuff. Now, you talked about personal conditions of satisfaction, so I think this is a appropriate next question of marketers who are on here who want to grow professionally. You've obviously gone from working for a company to speaking and writing. What do you recommend, how people actually build their own selves and their own careers?
Well, I think, what is it you want to do, and how do you want to stand for the things that you're doing in life, in terms of life itself? I mean, what is it you want to do? I mean, do you want to be a global business celebrity? You want to be, the best at the PR side? You want to be at, the best marketer? So it's got to be very clear about what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it.
Yeah, we almost have to go back to that question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Exactly.
Good. Now, one of the main themes in running the Gauntlet is change. Change the mood, change the culture, change everything. Why is change so important?
Well, I think the biggest thing that you can do is, once we do this as business owners, business leaders all the time, we're trying to set things up, and we get it set up. We think, well, once we get it set up, let's drive the efficiencies of it. It's now we can rest back, and that's not when you should be resting. You should be going, okay, once I get there, how can I make it that much better? So it really gets into a mindset of what it is we can do in our businesses and lives just to continue to change. And I've just found out, and that's fun. I mean, Oprah Winfrey says you should change your hairdo every 3 years. So, I mean, if Oprah says it's right, it's got to be right. So the point is, it's continual improvement, and just in being in a state of change all the time, I mean, you're just that much better, and you continually to get that business rolling where you want to, or your personal life, or whatever. Just to me, just makes perfect sense. I couldn't understand why you wouldn't want to do that.
Very good point, and I think this leads us into the next point. A thing you said in running the gauntlet is that companies need to adapt or die. And we have so many examples of companies that fail to adapt. And some of the names, Kodak, obviously. Hostess has been in the news recently. You know, Twinkies haven't changed much.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a Twinkie, man. It's just the people that are running that business. That's the problem. I mean, the Twinkie's we all know a Twinkie will last for a lifetime. No matter, if you just leave it in the container, 100 years from now, you'll still be able to eat it,
You're right. So why is it so important that companies need to continually adapt to a changing world?
Well, because the world's changing. I mean, nothing stays the same. It's never been the same for the last 5 years. It's not going to stay the same for the last 50 years. And it's not going to stay the same for the last 5 months. Things are continuing changing, so why wouldn't you want to adapt? I mean, I think we can all agree that, Darwin's theory of evolutionary changes has been, certainly one that's proven itself out in terms of adaptive species. Well, why aren't we doing the same kind of things in our business? Why aren't we utilizing new tools? I mean, if you're still sticking to writing letters by hand, I think it's pretty much, we've seen that time go by. Emails are even becoming dead now. So we have to learn to adapt in order to change. If we don't, so we've got to change, adapt, or die. That's the bottom line. To me, it's pretty fundamental.
You're right, Jeff. Companies have to continue to adapt, and especially, when you're on top. And you showed a great chart I remember seeing of the sale of film. It just dropped off a cliff. Which happened at Kodak, and you got to continue. That's going to happen to everybody's business, You just can't.
Nothing's said that it's written in stone. I mean, look, if you're in a dog race and you're one of the dogs in the race, it's better to be the first dog than the second, because the second one doesn't have a pretty view. If you know what I mean. So. It's always better to be the lead horse than the second or third or the last horse.
Sure. Now, we're getting to the end of the year, and a lot of companies are starting to put their marketing plans together for 2013. What do you think they should be thinking about as they start moving into a new year?
Growth, nothing but growth. What are the ways in which they can grow? Either the top line growth or margin share or market share. So, I mean, for most marketers, if you look at it, if you get to the fundamental things that they're being measured on, they're being measured on the top line growth, they're being measured by margin growth, they're being measured by customer satisfaction, and they're certainly measured by some level of brand value. And a lot of marketers and major companies are also measured by how well they get along with other people at the C-suite. And so, but most of the time I never cared as much about that as I did the other ones. So if you focus on the customer and have that customer satisfaction, it typically leads to the top line growth, it leads to the margin growth. So continually focus on what is it we can do to put customer first and customer centric. By being more customer centric, it leads to those things. So I think organizations should really step back and take a look at, are we doing the things that our customers are asking us to do? And are we anticipating what those needs are ahead of time? Again, getting back to my points before about some of the major trends around thinking about all that data, and you have 17 CRM systems, 55 different databases. You got IT departments controlling everything. It's pain, lots of pain in being able to find out those customers and what household views you have in terms of how they're interacting with your various products, services, and buying those services. But then how can I utilize something to stay a second ahead of them? So I'm anticipating those needs. What research am I doing to find out what those needs are? So I know the true things that customers are doing. And I mean in-depth customer-focused research that I want to be able to do via mobile or certainly via online. Not the way I used to do it. I'm talking about doing it instantaneous, like now. It's happening every second. And then the third piece of that is, how do I go to where they are? I talk about Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison was not only a great comedian, but I think he was a really smart, intellectual person in terms of his thought. He used to tell people that we're starving in the desert. He had a whole routine about they lived in the desert. You live in the sand. Food doesn't grow in the sand. He said, move to where the food is. And so in this case, the third piece that I was talking about earlier in trends And that's where mobile devices, and on mobile devices is where people are now moving to. So how do we become part of that infrastructure and be a part of how we interact with the customer with, again, the most personal device that they're going to possibly use?
That's some great advice. So what is Jeffrey Hayzlett, global business celebrity and cowboy, planning for 2013?
I should probably wear my hat for this one again. Right? So you know, I think, Jeff, you've got to do this as part of the activity, is have all of your guests wear hats. I think that would probably be a really cool thing for you to think about. But what are we going to be doing for this year? What we're doing is practicing what we preach. I mentioned that we're getting closer to our customers. We're trying to anticipate their needs, and then we're going to go to where they're at. So that's a big part of what we do. You're going to see us a lot more visible. Certainly, I'm the spokesperson for our companies and part of the brand in terms of the activity. So you'll see us a lot more on television this year, maybe with a show or two that we'll be doing of our own. But you'll see us being a lot more outspoken in these key items and issues that marketers and business people are facing, because at the core, I'm really a business person and always have been. I've bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career, and I'm going to continue to be a very big advocate for growth in this next and upcoming year.
Great stuff, Jeff, and I hope you have a great year in 2013. Last question. For our viewers, they probably want to learn about you and your organization and your books. Where do you recommend that they go to learn about what you do, and how do they find out about Jeffrey Hayzlett?
Well, that's great. Well, you'd have to be a hermit or just be really stupid not to be able to find out information on us, because we're very visible. You can find us at Hayzlett.com. You can find us online anywhere. You can tweet me. You can Facebook us. You can find us on Google+. You can find us on YouTube. I mean, we're very open in terms of what we do and how we do, but our organization has a component of strategic marketing to the Hayzlett Group. And then we also own a B2B company for public relations and social media called Tall Grass. Because if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to learn to piss in the tall grass. And so it's a very aggressive firm and a very aggressive business that helps businesses validate and amplify their messages. And so you can find us just about anywhere by just Googling us, or just, write me at jeffreyh@hayzlett.com. I'm around.
Great stuff, Jeff. I want to thank Jeffrey Hayzlett for being the guest on the show. He was a really fun guest, and I always enjoy talking to him. Before we go, we have to thank our sponsors, because they pay the bills, and our show would not exist if it weren't for companies like Avatage, great video content marketing company, avatage.com, Digital Ethos, which is marketing education, nonprofit, Communication Strategy Group. Go to communicationstrategygroup.com for PR, brand telling. Eloqua is the largest, best revenue performance management software company out there, and Watchitoo provides this awesome platform. Marketing Made Simple TV premieres every Thursday at noon Eastern. So until next week, we'll see you next time on Marketing Made Simple TV.